Yo, what is going on YouTube? I am Germ here. Today we're kind of talking about a little bit of a different story. This is regarding the LEC. This is an article that I came across while I was scrolling across Reddit, and I actually thought it was pretty interesting. Usually Reddit is not the best place in the world to go to find interesting content or anything that's going to have much value or anything like that to it. I enjoy doom scrolling Reddit as much as the next guy, but oftentimes I'm left being like, okay, what did I just even read? I'm stupider. Like, this is for sure like killing my brain cells off or whatever. But this one I thought was pretty cool, so I wanted to make a video about it. Wanted to share it with you guys. It's revolving around an issue that we've kind of touched on in the LCS, and definitely something that I believe is a big deal and a big issue in the LCS. But it's also a very big deal in the LEC as well, and something that I feel like maybe going a little bit under the radar. And that is this. This was the Reddit post that I did scroll across. 257 upvotes, so it wasn't like super highly upvoted. So, you know, I had to be scrolling for a little bit, actually. And it said this, the quote, at least that's here, is, "It seems like every other rookie that joins any other team kind of crumbles. Teams don't really do a good job at managing rookies. Hired, fired, the young talent problem in the LEC." And I actually kind of love that title, the young talent problem in the LEC. Sounds really dramatic, clickbaity, whatever. But it does highlight an interesting issue. And like I said, we talked about this in the LCS. I talked about this recently, how young talent kind of has an issue in the LCS. Guys like Kenvi and Tenacity and even now like Busio and all these guys coming up, they have decisions to make of whether they want to stay in academy, whether they want to try and wait till the top 5 team is going to give them an offer, which is never going to happen, or go down to a bottom 5 team that's going to have bad coaching, bad management, bad facilities, bad drafts, bad players. It's going to make you look bad, and that's going to hurt your career value. So you're just kind of in a lose situation. But the LEC, the problem's kind of different. The LEC is known for so much young talent. They're known for how stacked the ERLs are. They're known for new, young, great European players coming up all the time, and that's so much the story and the narrative of Europe. But there is kind of a miss story and a miss alternative in there. It's like, yes, so many guys have worked out, and there's so many success stories. Players like Larson is one that comes to mind for me. The whole Mad Lions team of like Humanoid, Kaiser, Karzi, more recently El Yoya. These guys coming up from the LEC and being really, really special and being very, very talented and really working out. But the ERLs are massive. The ERLs are huge. The EUS server in general is just very big. There is just a consistent talent pipeline coming through. And yes, there have been some absolute home runs. There have been some smash hits, some slam dunks, some guys who are going to be staples of the LEC for years to come. But there's also been a lot of flops, a lot of guys who haven't worked out, and that's fine. That's always going to happen whenever you're calling up a rookie, young player, whatever. Those things are going to happen. Some guys are going to work out, some aren't. That's just the nature of bringing up rookies. But there also has been a fair bucket or group or whatever of people who have been mismanaged and who have maybe not been given a fair shake or not been given a fair chance. And I feel like that kind of gets swept under the rug because of how well regarded the LEC is for its young talent. But the story we're going to get into kind of illustrates a very, very clear issue and point that people have been talking about for a little bit, but I just kind of wanted to bring some new light to it. So, hired, fired, the young talent problem in Europe's LOL esports scene. After years in regional leagues, Tinks finally took to the LEC stage in 2021. It feels so fucking good to be here. He wants to prove himself in the LEC and have a lengthy career in a massive esports arena, but the dream is quickly shattered. If you guys remember the story of Tinks last year, he came into SK as the starting jungler in the 2021 spring split. SK was an interesting team. Obviously, they had Treats coming over from TSM, and some young players. They had some interesting talent. Obviously, things didn't go all that well for them, but in Spring Split, stuff actually did go pretty well. But now you see where SK is at today. Obviously, there was no kind of sustained success or anything. This time in the LEC ends after just one season, and not even one season, one split. After being kicked out, he felt terrible, he says, and he is not alone. Young talents worked for years to get one of the 50 coveted spots in the LEC. For many newcomers, the LEC dream ends after just one season, and one of them is Tinks. The 23-year-old Danish player had what has become the typical rookie year. He first attracted attention in 2020 with his performance at the EU Masters, was acquired by SK for the beginning of 2021. He knew the coach on SK. They worked together before. The strategy appeared to work, and they made it into playoffs. They finished 6th. Treats won MVP. Treats didn't win MVP. Treats was like top 5 in the MVP. Had a really, really good split. Reckless ended up winning the MVP, but Treats was really good. SK, clicked in a lot of ways. They ended up making the playoffs, but obviously they got a taste of the success. They made playoffs, and they wanted to push for more. So going into the summer split, they decided to make some changes. Despite the comparatively good result, Tinks was dismissed by SK after one. They keep saying season, but it's one split. Season makes it sound like the whole year. It was a bit of a shock, he says, especially because we were playing better than we were expected to. Definitely, they overperformed. The explanation for the sacking, he says, was very vague. After being praised for his development after the playoffs, he says he was told after 4 days in training for the next split that it wasn't working out after all, which is just crazy. Doesn't even make sense. They were getting ready for summer split with him as the starter, and then a couple days into like practice or whatever, it sounds like they told him, hey, you're not going to be the starter anymore. Like, we're moving on. This isn't working out. Insane. Crazy. Tinks is, the explanation for the sacking was very vague. I wasn't really in a mindset to challenge her opinion, so the conversation ended pretty quickly. Tinks is particularly critical of the management. Usually you want to give your players a decent time window so they can find something else. Very standard in esports and everywhere. For its part, the management of SK said Tinks simply did not adapt quickly enough to the changing game and his performance declined over the course of the season, which again sounds really weird. If after spring split they told him he was developing well, working out nice, they're excited for the future, 4 days into training, they tell him to hit the road. This doesn't really fit what this guy's saying. This just kind of sounds like some PR bullshit, but it's also he said, she said. We don't know for sure what's true. This is also discussed with him very clearly. He was given homework for the break. He should work relatively hard on his game as to not lose touch, says Mueller. But his style of play was unfortunately still not on par with the competition after the break. Again, as Tinks would say, 4 days after the break. Super, super weird. But anyway, this is something that continued to happen. And if you guys remember back to this time, this was an absolute disaster from SK. They benched Tinks, who was a rookie. SK makes playoffs. Now, Tinks wasn't that great. I think he was a bottom 5 jungler in the LEC for sure, but he's a rookie. That's his very, very first split. A lot of guys come in and are bottom 5 in their position in their very first split in the LEC. And maybe Tinks had a bright future. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he's not for sure, the face of the future or whatever. But changing in between spring and summer is always rough. Getting benched after one split is always really, really rough. But it's not so bad if you get benched for a great player or, another talented rookie or somebody else that's coming in. They ended up benching him for Treats to role swap to jungle and bring in, what was it, like their coach to play support or something like that? It was just some ridiculous, insane situation that made no sense at all. Treats was an MVP candidate. Tinks was an okay rookie jungler. And now they downgraded at jungle, downgraded at support, took their MVP player, off-rolled him. That's insane. That is just like disgusting management 101. Absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely insane. I think Tinks is for sure the most egregious example of, mismanaging of a rookie in this whole thing. But there are definitely some other examples. This article does talk about some of them. They talk about Woolite, who played in the LEC before in 2014. We made it back to the LEC in the summer of 2019. He too was replaced after just one split. It was pretty hard for him, he goes on to say. I know some people were throwing up some other names, like Reeker just recently got benched. Again, this Reeker one, that's not as bad for me because Reeker wasn't very good and they had Niski as an option. So that one doesn't feel as bad as getting replaced by a role swap jungler. I know some people are also saying Advian more recently getting replaced by Mickey, but again, there was another really, really good option out there. One of the ones that comes to my mind is, I believe, Jekolad pretty recently got replaced after one split. It just seems like there's a couple problems. Like, one, there's just so much talent and so many players in the LEC. Like, the league for sure needs to expand. Like, we need to get K-Corp and Koi in the LEC. I think that is a really, really easy way to relieve some of this issue. Like this article says, hey, there's so many players battling for those 50 spots or whatever. And that's crazy, and that does suck. And so many players get put in these terrible situations where you need to come in that first split and just like dominate, or you're going to get replaced and you don't have time to develop or get better. Like, some people, it takes them years to develop and get better. And yeah, you can always go back down to the ERLs, but if you're not playing against the best competition, it can be hard to get better or to ever get up to the level of that competition if you're not playing against them. It's kind of like the argument of like the North American solo queue or just even the LCS in general. Like, how are we ever going to be as good as Korea if we are scrimming against, Golden Guardians and we're playing solo queue against, Tyler 1, like, how are we ever going to get that good? Same thing with the ERLs. If you don't get a chance to consistently scrim, and play LEC and play on the LEC stage, there's only so good you can get in the ERLs, I think, realistically. So it does suck that these guys aren't getting an option. Now, hey, if we bring in K-Corp, if we bring in Koi, yes, we do remedy some of the issue, but still, there's going to be so many talented players now vying for 60 spots. And then you also have the issue of organizations like SK, like Astralis, like some of these other bottom-tier orgs in the LEC who are not interested in spending the money even that it requires to get some of these top talents and some of these top players. Again, look at how SK has handled things. Look at how Astralis has handled a lot of players. You know, they hung on to Promise Q as long as they did. SK, what they've done with all their young players, like just so many weird things going on. There's just a lot of bad organizations, a lot of bad apples in both the LEC and the LCS, and it's definitely affecting a lot of young players. It's definitely affecting a lot of careers and a lot of lives. And I don't know if there's a way to totally remedy this, because if you look at professional sports, there's always bad teams, there's always bad management, there's always going to be issues and stuff. But right now, teams have no incentive to be good. You know, Astralis is getting the same revenue share as G2 and all these other teams and stuff that's going on. And they're getting to sit on their LEC spot, which, hey, if the LEC keeps growing and keeps doing well, it's going to keep growing in value, whether or not Astralis, you know, has good players or spends a lot of money or doesn't. So it's just really, really weird. Overall, I thought this was a cool article that is highlighting an issue because, like I said, you know, the LEC does get a lot of praise for how awesome it is for new players and for rookies and how it develops all these players from the ERLs. But there's definitely a dark side to this as well, where there is some players really getting screwed over. And then the article also goes on to talk about how once you get to the LEC and then get demoted, it can be really, really hard to get back because there's a stigma around you that, hey, yeah, that guy already played in the LEC. He sucked. He got benched after one split. Like, we're going to go get somebody different. And that we've definitely seen that happen to players before, and it can be really, really difficult for them to even make it back to the LEC ever again, even if they just got a chance to play one split and were kind of fucked over by their organization. So overall, really interesting article, really cool. I'm glad they wrote this. I'm glad that I got to read about this, and I did want to talk about it. Like I said, I already kind of roasted the LCS for how they handle rookies and young players. I think the LEC has different issues with rookies and young players, and overall, they definitely do a lot better job, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done and a lot better we can be doing for these young men, for these players, for these, you know, just careers and lives and stuff overall, because at the end of the day, if we get the best players getting opportunities and developing and getting better, that's going to be better for all the players, all the teams, all the organizations, for the league, and for the landscape overall. And at the end of the day, that's what I want most. But that's pretty much it for this video today, guys. Let me drop a like if you did enjoy it. I would appreciate that so much. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think about this story, this issue, this video. Am I, you know, on to something here? Am I way off? Am I reaching? I don't know. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions. Subscribe, stay up to date on all my latest content. Hopefully catch you guys in the next one. But until then, peace.